Okay, hello everybody. I'm Brian, and this is AAMI News and Conversation. We're here at AAMI eXchange, the first full day. It's been a pretty exciting day. There's been a lot of really cool sessions. I'm sure you guys have got to catch some, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we really dive into this, everybody out there, we're with two award winners today on a topic that I've been hearing from a lot of people going, oh, I saw the awards announcement, and it made me read this article. And now I have so many questions. Or I'm thinking of a new career trajectory. Or, oh, this is a solution that I haven't really considered before. So let's dive into that. But first and foremost, who am I talking to?
I'm Lacey Harbour. I am currently a senior manager of regulatory affairs at Thermo Scientific over emerging technologies and cybersecurity. And before that, my background stems from IVDs to the clinical lab, where I first started dealing with AI before I realized it was AI back well over 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm so happy to be here.
No, welcome.
I'm Filsun, Moussa. I work at Medtronic. I'm a senior manager over data and operations. So I've been in the industry like my entire time at Medtronic, started in international regulatory affairs. It captured my heart in the sense of originally was pre-med. I was planning to be a physician, and I used to joke that I was going to be a broke physician because I was going to go back home where my family is from in East Africa and serve. And when I figured that you could really work with regulators or figure out how you can get your products globally.
Have the international impact.
And that just transformed my perspective. And then I kind of shifted into, I always like to optimize processes and figure out how we can make life easier so we get the products compliantly out faster. So it was just natural for me to kind of shift and think about how we could utilize the new technologies that we're putting in our products to make our processes easier so we can get to market faster.
Yeah, excellent. And you two were able to join everybody on stage this morning during the AAMI Awards because you're both award winners. And congratulations, you are the recipients of our PUBS, our Publication Award for Most Informative Article, which really goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where I had people coming up to me being like, that is cool. I need to know more about that, etc. So the title of the article was RAQA 4.0, The Time Is Now for Artificial Intelligence, which honestly, great title, really got a lot of attention really fast. And why don't you just give me an elevator pitch? What drove you to write this article?
Well, we were both dealing with it in our personal work. And we met at a conference just a couple of years ago and just started talking about the pain points we're having. She more on the UDI side, me on global product registrations and making sure your regulatory affairs are staying up to date with the global rules and requirements and how difficult that is. And together we were like, we need to write about this. And I've been fortunate to have published before with AAMI and said, you know what, let's do this. And it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've always found so powerful is when you are able to make a genuine connection. Mm-hmm. Literally, we're eating lunch, and we're just, like, vibing off of each other. And I'm like, did you hear about this thing? And this is what we're working on. And one of the things that I found that was very powerful of us coming together, we met regularly. We got together. We got to know each other as people.
Oh, nice.
And one of the things, that's why I really liked the presentation today from Empath Labs, is that empathy is that superpower. So we were able to connect as humans and then put together content from different perspectives that made, I think, the article more powerful because we're coming from different perspectives and experiences.
I like that. You had a little bit of a shout out there for our keynote speaker today.
Yeah.
So I'll put a link in the description for people who didn't get to attend eXchange to find out a little bit more about that. But we're here to talk about you today. And when we talk about this RAQA, right, so we're talking about regulatory assurance and quality assurance, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And 4.0, what do we mean by that? Why are we on to the 4th edition of this thing that I think is around forever?
We stole it from Industry 4.0. Oh. And it is funny because not everyone in regulatory affairs know Industry 4.0, but those in the quality side typically do because it's tied to having your interoperability in your manufacturing line, having all of your sensors plugging into a dashboard that you can tell in real time that, hey, your robot in manufacturing is going over here, and you know that this manufacturing line may be behind. It's a real-time data that you can make real-time decisions off of. And so why not apply that to quality and regulatory specific considerations?
Right. And now, Lacey, you had mentioned challenges. So, Filsun, what kind of challenges are we talking about in this case? You both were running into them, but are they directly related to AI, since that's a focus of the article?
It was more of keeping up with the new requirements, and sometimes there's conflicting needs, or you'll be managing, like everybody knows about EMDR, and you have this huge change of things that you need to keep up with. Just as you solve for that, most of our products in our portfolio, you tend to not want to create different products for different markets. So now you're having to go back and update your technical documentation. Right. So it's a very manual effort, and also it's very easy to kind of forget to copy and paste something somewhere. So that's more from the administrative side. The other side that I was really interested in is I'm leading for our business kind of how are we collecting our data to get ready for UniMed. So when you think about a regulatory submission, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to solve a patient's need, a therapy that you're trying to solve. So your marketers are thinking about it at a therapy level. Regulatory affairs is thinking about what standards, which agency I need to work with within FDA, and they might get down to like the CFN level. But when you're in regulatory operations and you're working on a UDI submission, you have to get down to the granularity of a G10. And if there's changes there, so you're dealing with a lot of data, and the data that we collect for the US UDI is like it's a lot more complex, and each country's coming up with their own UDI traceability database, and then they're cross-referencing your quality data against what you've put against your regulatory submission. So your regulators are getting more data-centric. So we got to get ready. So that's kind of where we started the conversation is, well, how do we use the technology, the advancements that we're putting in our products to make, our patients' lives better, our physicians more precise? How do we do that for our quality and regulatory folks so that we can handle the administrative burden and also the attention to detail that it requires to make sure your metadata is in a good state?
I want to hit on a point that you just meant where you said, the regulatory bodies are becoming more data focused. And that's driven primarily, and correct me if I'm wrong here, by the evolution of technology. Things are moving so fast that we have to still have something quantifiable for, to make sure that it's going to be compliant with the local regulations, that kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah.
I would say yes, but it's also because the data is being collected.
It exists in the first place. You got to acknowledge it. You can have great algorithms, you can have great ideas, but until you have a good data repository that you can trust, you're not going to go very far with whatever algorithm or model you want to put into place. So, yeah. You write in the article that AI is a good tool for this, but you particularly, this really came out at me where you're like, AI is not the solution. AI is the tool you use for your solution.
Yes.
So it's going to be a custom solution for a custom problem every time. And somehow we're going to work AI into it. Can you give me an example of that? How are people can use AI for RAQA?
Well, the project that is in particular is one of my favorite projects, are using AI to monitor global product requirements and expectations. When I say requirements and expectations, I learned that from one of my mentors. Requirements being laws, things that you must do, and expectations are the interpretation of how to meet those laws. So like the technical standards and guidance documents.
Right, and it's should versus shall, as we like to talk about a lot.
Yes. And so you collect that information, you elucidate it, and then in real time you update and are able to make decisions and inform your decision leaders and your product developers of what those requirements and expectations and the changes, and hopefully even get in advance of that. And that is something that's maybe not just one company, but how you approach it will be particularly based on your organizational chart, how you might approach that. who has access to it, how is that approved even, and the management of it. So, when you look at it being a tool, it certainly does apply.
And I think one of the things that kind of is forefront in my mind is the people aspect. I think we sometimes forget the power of, like, the idea, the being able to articulate what the problem is, to have kind of this excitement to build and create, to solve a problem. That all takes people. Yes, you need technology. Yes, you need education. But that drive for curiosity to understand, how can I solve this problem? Whether it's a widget or it's an algorithm, whatever it is, you need people to do that. And then I think the flip side of it is, how do you empower people to be more effective with their ideas? And that's where you can kind of shift that mindset. And you're seeing a lot of people have a lot of fear around how rapidly things are changing. But I also think for those of us who understand what the new world is going to look like, or we think we understand, that we bring people along with us, that we consider that every human being deserves to have dignity and honor. And how do you keep up with a fast pace, but at the same time ensure that literacy, we talk about digital literacy. We need to really talk about literacy around AI and machine learning and its capabilities, what it is good for, what it's not good for. Again, to that conversation of using it as a tool versus as, you don't throw a wrench at everything or a hammer at everything. You have to figure out what is the right tool in the toolbox to use for your specific problem.
It almost sounds like the solution to your problems in most cases is going to be getting the right person to develop the right solution. And then we're enabling that person or that solution with the AI tool. So it's a step-by-step. We got to step it back a little. That's great. I love that. People first.
One thing I didn't mention in our conversation is that on our sticky note within the keynote, he asked us what we're passionate about.
Sure.
And I wrote down reducing silos and open communication, because that leads across everything. And the reason I'm bringing that up now is because in my company, I've reached out to HR and asked them, because some of the tools I'm developing, they're powerful.
It could work with them as well, right?
It could impact regulatory affairs.
I see.
And I'm asking, in a way where the new professionals coming in, they're not going to learn, they're not going to have to do this manually like what we did. They're going to miss that skill set of having to dig through Saudi Arabia's laws and understand, okay, I have to find somebody that can help me navigate this, or is this really what I'm thinking it's saying? And especially even in the U.S., it's just some regions are more complicated than others. And there's a skill set that comes when you're having to do that research globally and even locally. So we might lose that. So I reached out to HR and asked them, you realize we're developing these tools. How should we work together so that you're aware that it might impact the longevity of, the pipeline, the skill set, the training of new employees, because that's something that HR really is mindful of.
Right.
And pay attention to the org chart, who's really doing things, bring people together. And it's not going to be the same for each company. Yeah.
This is a really good takeaway, and it's something that we hear from other people too. I remember the American, the AHA, they were pushing towards, AI is a great tool, but it's really a tool to put in the hands of our physicians. It's not to replace the physicians. This sounds like the similar thing. It's about the people. You put the AI in the tool, you use it in such a way, but then you also have to think about, how is that AI now going to impact those same people?
Yeah,
ways.
Yeah, especially the new professionals coming in.
Yeah.
When photography came out, I'm sure you've heard this, all the artists were complaining about how it's going to make them lose their jobs, but then they became impression artists. They changed.
For me, that really makes me think about, because I have 2 young children, right? Sure. So I'm thinking for my own career, my peers, how I'm uplifting my team to be ready to use the tools. One of the things that I did over the last year with a colleague is we put together kind of an introductory webinar to train our entire clinical, regulatory, medical affairs department to ensure that they knew the tools we had access to internally and literally had them just practice in real time. And we did that over the year. And you can kind of just see, but you'll see the folks that are like, yeah, I want to do this, put it in my workflow. And then you'll have the people just like comfortable with the way they always done it, right? And I think that's a bit of the challenge because the folks who put it in their workflow, you're now able to produce...
Yeah, their efficiency.
Your efficiency goes up.
Yeah.
And at some point, the tool is going to keep getting smarter.
Yeah.
So you need to understand, well, what do I need to start? What do I need to upskill myself? What is the knowledge I need to understand? So I personally have been trying to understand kind of how the tool works. And the other thing is I recognize that what we do in regulatory operations is probably, it's most likely going to be replaced by not just AI, but you do process any kind of hyper automation. Where you standardize the data, you change your tools, you put the data in. You're not even going to need, you can do a bot to do the data entry. So what do we need on the team to grow the team so that they can get ready for the next role, what it looks like?
Right. It's not like we're not going to have human oversight for this. There still needs to be almost quality assurance for the AI itself, right? So who's interacting with the outputs.
Yeah, and then how do you validate the algorithm? And that's
especially if they don't have the skill to pick up on it not being correct, you know. You gotta verify it. But I love that point of upskilling and how do you do that? And I think in my mind, by the time I think this may have a negative impact on our profession, I think. Go back to the keynote, who was amazing. He was doing voice of customer. It's like he did it organically. My gosh, he didn't have to be trained. I had to be trained on it. We all have to try voice of customer and understand that we're not making devices to suit regulatory's need, and we're making devices to suit customers' need. And if we think that, but sometimes we get so hyper fixated, you have to follow this rule, you know. And so I think if we become better at voice of customer, and we plug in our outputs to the development team, the development teams will want to come to us as humans and talk to us as humans if we position ourselves in a way and the workflows in a way that makes it to where we're helpful, not a barrier.
You know, one thing that I've always thought, maybe not every regulatory affairs person thought of themselves this way, but I've always thought of myself as an interpreter. So I'm interpreting the requirements.
Yeah.
And I'm interpreting the technical language that the engineers are talking and there's, the scientists are in there.
Yeah.
And then you have the regulators and then you have the global regulators. So I think even
there's different jargon between all these different groups as well.
So now the AI can do the translation, but what are you now translating? What are you advocating for? So now your regulators using an AI. So it's an AI talking to an AI. So now, what is truly safe? What is working? Like you said, who is the customer? So maybe advocacy is going to be where you're going to be more leaning towards saying, look, this doesn't make sense anymore. Or the data is showing this. How do you interpret data? What we did last year, I was able to get a computer science intern. We typically don't hire computer scientists in the regulatory function.
That's very cool.
I told my boss, let's take a chance. Can I, this year, when we're bringing some interns in, I don't want to hire the typical background. I want someone in computer science.
Love that.
And embedded them in our team for a year. And we were able to keep her on for another year. And I hope, we can keep her permanently on the team. And she has transformed the way we work. She's built tools for us. It's kind of like for us to be better. And then she's also able to add a skill set of understanding what it means to be in the function itself.
This is fascinating, and it ultimately comes back to, I think this evolution happens in almost every career that's impacted by, we'll go all the way back to big data, huge data swings and the changing of technology, but I used to be in discovery-based science, and more of that has been moving towards, well, we need to be able to work with the data, we need to know Python, we need to know, so the world changes, but it winds up being the people with the right skill sets is really the solution, not the tool itself. So,
Right.
right back to
And
that.
I would say the skill set is being able to be comfortable with learning something new,
Right.
as well as being curious and just accepting you're not going to know the answer to everything. And you need to put people around you that know different things and learn how to work with them. Again, it's back to people.
Yeah.
And learning how to be with people and encouraging people. And that's one of the reasons, and I didn't put this in my introduction, that I became, like I went into coaching. Because I could see that I moved around a lot. When I connect. And I think that is a secret sauce, is when you can help people unlock their vision, their excitement. And I think the better leader, and I'm leaning all into people leadership because I want to see people passionate, excited to solve the problems. And my personal life is impacted by the technologies. My daughter has type 1 diabetes. For us to get to the next new solution that's going to make her life even better, or any other patient in any other space, we need the people to unlock their ideas.
Well, Filsun, you've got me excited about this, and I'm going, oh, we're going to change things. I'm not even in this profession. So you obviously have that secret sauce, and the idea is we got to pass it on to other people, get them into it. But thank you both so much for joining me today and talking this through. I'm going to put the article in the description of this video. It's RAQA 4.0. The time for artificial intelligence is now. The most informative article of the year. Congratulations again. And thanks for talking to me about this today.
Thank you,
All right.
Brian.
Thank
this was
you.
so much fun.
Awesome.
Thank you.